Okay, we will get started now. We are glad to welcome everyone to our work session tonight, Tuesday, September 13th. And to begin, we will have a discussion about Main Street art, and we'll turn the time over to Rebecca.
Yes, thank you. This is going to be a fun one today, as I feel like it's been exciting to put this together. I love discussions about art. So I thank you all for most of you sending the lists of art that are your top choice pieces within the budget. So it was a bonus. I compiled them together so that I have the ones that got 3 out of 5 votes, 2 out of 5 votes, and then ones that were only mentioned by one of you. So I kind of we'll go through those first ones. But I will say the goal today is to find a consensus in a handful of them. One thing I love about art, and you'll see today as I share your votes, is that from every different perspective, there's no bottom line, one piece that everyone's going to agree on. I love that about art because it's different opinions. You come from different backgrounds of things that speak to you. So this discussion is going to be really, I think, interesting to see how opinions can even be opposite, which will be fun. So our goal today is to just come to a consensus of, even if it was just one, I would be so pleased. But maybe we'll compromise that you'll go away with one that you like, maybe a couple you don't, but we'll see. So these first ones I've listed, we have 5 pieces. I know, isn't that interesting? There's overlapping. Oh, yeah, that could change it, but still, I never got 1 out of 5 of you with the votes not votes, but sent me your opinions. There are 5 of them that 3 of you listed, not the same 3, so it's a mix of you mentioning the same 5. So there'll be a couple that you'll have voted for and a couple you'll be surprised were voted for. All right, so, excuse me. First one, so 3 of you told me that you loved Dad, maybe on your top, and a couple of you talking about maybe leasing more than purchasing. I think that's an idea that I felt about that one as well, since it is a larger piece and could have varying opinions that we could just see how the community feels about it and lease it for a year. If after a year we decide we want to purchase it, that price of the lease goes towards the sculpture, and we just work with the artist. If we decide not to, the artist just picks it up in a year. The Art Around the Corner does a contract for us. So that's the first one. 3 of you said you loved it. Yeah.
Sorry. Just a quick question. Along those same lines, if another city decides, or another purchaser decides they want to buy this, will we have the right of first refusal during our lease period?
I believe so. So far, when I talked to them over the phone, none of these have been purchased or shown interest yet because they aren't going to be available until March 31st because of how their exhibit works is 1 year at a time. And so I had asked them too, because even St. George themselves decides a few pieces they want to purchase. But they said if we are already thinking about ones, usually St. George backs off and will say, oh, if someone else wants it, we'll look at other pieces. So for during that lease, I believe that we kind of have dibs, but they'll let us know when someone is interested. Great question. And I'm just going through these top 5 just to see how we feel about these top 5 since majority of you liked them. And we'll see how you feel. The next one was Sharing Your Story, which is the adult and child on a steel bench. The other was North Star, which was the multi-metals ship. Then Wet Your Whistle, which, just to clarify, it's a fire hydrant, and it is a real fire hydrant that they've repurposed. And then it's water that's spurting out and putting the cap above it with two cranes, I believe it was. Did I say that? I think it's cranes. So that's that one. And the last one was Steampunk Bell. So these are the pieces that it seems that, around half of you seem to have liked, not the same half of you. And I thought maybe we could start with discussion of those and see if there's a consensus of 1 or 2. Or if you feel passionate about one that didn't make it to that list, maybe we'll talk about that. I just wanted to share what I found from your input.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
for the steampunk bell,
Yes.
is there actually a bell
Yes.
that rings?
And it's not something that's kinetic, like I thought it was a whole thing that you could pull. It's just the bell that moves, but you have to hit it. And they think there's a mallet that came with it, but they haven't seen it, so they were gonna follow up with me on that, but it does ring.
So that could be an interactive thing that people can ring.
Yes.
Okay.
And just to note, the only other interactive one is the pig, his tail twists. It's not on this list, but I just wanted to mention that.
Unless you count the wind,
And the wind moving one.
but you're talking about the only other interactive that
Would that
made
have-
this top tier from what the council,
Correct. I just wanted to mention that's something I didn't mention before, that the pig
Yeah.
iron is kinetic, but I think that one only made it to one vote, just to
Okay.
let you know.
thank you.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk about Dad, since a few of you loved it, and I'm thinking a couple of you might not. If that's something that maybe leasing it is something we could decide on. This is such a large piece that it wouldn't be on Main Street. I would suggest, I think we'd have to scout more specifically, but my idea was Bountiful Town Square, because it doesn't need a pedestal, it goes directly in the ground. So they've put it on bark, I don't know the other word for that, like a planter box area, that I think, looking at Bountiful Town Square, we have a couple spots like that we could maybe remove a little plant, a few plants, so that it could fit there for the year until, if we decide to keep it or not. But any thoughts on Dad?
Is there any traffic reason it couldn't go at, I don't know, the entrance to Main Street, 5 Points roundabout?
5 Points is one that the art board also loved that idea. The only reason I thought is that it is such a cool piece, people might want to see it up close because it's made out of driver's licenses, and that's not really an easily accessible place to look at it closer, but that's just 2 cents. I meant license plates. Thank
I heard
you.
license plates.
Yeah, thank you. You guys speak my language.
So it seems kind of big to
Yes.
me for what I've envisioned to go in. And I like so many other pieces more than this one myself.
That's a way to put them.
But I might be the only dissenting vote on this one.
I didn't vote for this one, but I'm happy to support leasing it for a year if there's a suitable location for it. But again, the place that immediately comes to mind, as Councilmember Bradshaw said, is the roundabout, and then we'd have pedestrians being run down.
Potentially, yeah.
But you
I
thought that
also-
it could potentially have a spot at Town Square where if people wanted to get up close. I mean, I think the problem with the roundabout is it's a photo op. And so people will want to stand by it and get up close to it. And since it is made of license plates, to be able to see that detail. And so I think that for people who want pictures too, it makes sense to me that it wouldn't be there. I like the idea of something being there. I think that's a great idea, but I think what makes this interesting is it's just interesting, like the things that it's made of, and it's just kind of whimsical, and it's just not something you see every day, and so I like the idea that it would be a photo op. It would be something that people would want to stand next to and get a picture of, or walk up to and touch it, or.
Very unique.
So the dimensions listed there, 9 foot by 12 foot.
Yes.
And so that's a pretty, and then you have maybe additional space around it that you would need to accommodate it. I just wonder where we would put it. Even a town square, without impeding like the uses that go on there with the farmer's market or.
Might fit in a skating ribbon loop.
Yeah, those planter in the center sections.
Is there one big enough for that?
I don't know.
Those seem like they're more like 4 or 5, maybe 6 feet at most to me mentally, but I don't know. That would be a good idea though, if it'd fit.
Is there any way that we have like a map of the park just to see, Lloyd? I don't know if that's something that we can look up or not.
We can maybe look that up while you're
Okay,
while you're discussing the other options.
great.
If I may, could I,
That's a
I want
devastating-
to just voice my support for the Dragon. And also just leasing it for the year and kind of seeing the public reaction and how people are interfacing and engaging with it. I think it could be something where, whatever space is designated, it could become an area where we have something that is in a continuous state of like, oh, we're gonna have this for a year or 2 years. Or if it becomes so iconic that, the community just really attaches itself to it, then maybe it is something that we would want to consider purchasing. But I love so much about this. I do think it is a destination piece. It's something that would draw people to come and see the Dragon. I think for the reason that it is so large. I loved how it was discussed that little kids could kind of climb on it. It's meant to be somewhat interactive and touched and kind of really embraced. And it is whimsical, and I just can't think of anything I've ever seen like it. And the price for the lease just seems
Right.
Screaming deal.
like a screaming deal.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
I agree with Councilmember Price Hewish. I actually really like it. I like the scale, and I do think it would become a destination. When I look at it and I think of kids climbing on it, I think of The Awakening. I think of that Albert Einstein in Washington, D.C., where he's just kind of coming out. And I just think people go and they sit and they take pictures. Like, they park, they take a picture, they hop in their car, and they drive away.
Right.
So I love that it's playful. I love that it's not too it's a serious piece. I don't want to discount the talent of the artist, but I like that it's
Right.
more playful than not. So I actually really like him, and I could see people eventually wanting to name him.
That's a good
But
idea.
I think the price is right as an introductory piece for Bountiful and to take the temperature of our residents on helping us, set the tone for what we want to do moving forward.
I
So.
think it's great. I do think it falls under the goal that we've talked about before, which is engaging, inviting, uplifting. It does meet those ideas. It's just on the more whimsical side, which I was surprised that every art board member loved this piece. I mean, agreed with Councilmember Barr that not discounting the seriousness of the artist, but it was so whimsical. I wasn't expecting that as their reaction. But the art board is made up of very different people with different backgrounds, theater, music, and it was interesting to see that they all chose that as their number one. If that helps potentially as a vote for what the community could think. I suspect there will be others who do not like it at all because it is very different for a Dragon and Bountiful, but I think it'll be interesting to see what people think about it.
That is interesting, though. That is good feedback to know that they all voted it as their number one, and coming from a diverse group like they are, but also they're all art lovers, and so I think, to me, that's good to know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this was my number one pick. I don't know if the rest of you ranked yours in order of how much you liked them, or just these were 5 that you liked, but this one I ranked as my number one, for a lot of the reasons you all have mentioned. And then seeing it in St. George this spring, it got a lot of attention. I don't know if you recall, it was not too far from where the League of Cities and Towns barbecue was at the park. Walked over with several folks, and I think it would add an element of fun no matter where we put it. At roundabout, at the park, some corner that it would fit on. I think it would be a great pickup, and I think we'd really enjoy it. And I think there would be a lot of efforts to give him a different name than what the artist named him.
Which I believe is just because he dedicated it to his own father. So I don't think it had anything to do with the actual dragon. Okay, so it sounds like we've got strong consensus majority. The next one I feel like a lot of you have mentioned is sharing your story. And it was a little on the pricier side. The art board loved this one, but also felt that it was just expensive because they were trying to think, okay, let's get more art for this amount of money. But I also loved this piece myself for just the community, kind of family-oriented community that we have. But what are our thoughts on sharing your story? As 3 of you mentioned it in your favorites.
Is leasing not an option?
It is also an option, actually, for this one as well. We can do that. I just didn't list that one because I seem to have strong pros towards it. But it is also a lease, and it would be for 10%, so $4,500. So all of these are actually up for lease if we wanted to do that. But a year comes quick. So it's the only thing I'm thinking if we did.
I liked this one for a few reasons. I feel like it could fit in with our streetscape or in our square area without imposing, but being maybe a icon or bring attention to it. It had some fun angles and seemed traditional, but not traditional at the same time, more classic and timeless maybe. But also interactive. You can sit down and get your picture taken by it. And I think more things we have that become the selfie social media, I think is good for our downtown.
Yeah.
So I like that about the dragon as well. But this one seemed a good, appropriate size for where we might place it.
Perfect.
I think it was my number 1.
I think it might
think
have
it
been
was
mine
too.
too.
It does have a really visceral effect. When you see it, it just is, it pulls at you. It's like an emotional, it tells a story as well as the sharing the story. So my main reservation was price,
Yeah.
but it is so lovely. So lovely.
I love it. I feel like for all the reasons that have been mentioned, and so I would definitely be interested in either a purchase or a lease.
I love it as well, but again, I think the price is my hang-up, and so I would lean more toward North Star, just because it's more than half the cost.
Yeah.
If we want to purchase anything, I think I would purchase North Star over sharing your story, and I would maybe lease sharing your story. And then if it becomes a beloved spot, then look into buying it. Because we wouldn't be out any money if we leased it. It's not like the lease on top of the cost, because the lease goes toward the purchase price, correct?
Correct.
So I think that's the direction I would go. But I'm curious to know, what did the council or the board, what was their thoughts on
They
this?
liked that one, but it didn't make it to their top 10 for price, thinking they wanted to purchase more for their money. But they also loved that one, so that's why it was also included at after the 10.
Can I share about North Star?
Yeah.
It's on my list, but it's small.
It is.
And the dimension
point.
that is the big one there is because it's on a tall pedestal, which is good because it looks very fragile, and you want it up out of the reach of kids.
It's like this
so-
long.
Yeah, at the most. So anyway, I love it, and I'd like to get it, but it's small.
And me as well. It was on my list. But I feel like because it's so tall, it's hard to get your picture taken by it too. But it could go about anywhere because of that as well. Because you can put it on a pedestal and put it almost anywhere. So it is very flexible that way.
And I'll say price-wise, I added the top ones from you also, Dad, Sharing Your Story, North Star, Wet Your Whistle, and Steampunk. And if we leased the Dragon, we'd be at $102,000, which is about our budget, because we would like about That would leave 13,000 for installation costs, since we're still trying to get estimates for that. And then that 8,000 for the bees that are,
So just to clarify, you're saying if we took the top 5 that you're showing here, if we did all of those and leased the Dragon, then we would basically be within budget?
correct. If we decided to have consensus of all 5, it would take the budget. I don't know what the next year's budget would leave us with. That's still to be determined, I believe. But if you wanted to start with a big bang, you could do potentially all of the next 5, but not saying we have to. I just wanted to mention that.
So I did not love this one. Sorry. Odd man out. I didn't love it from the aesthetic perspective, but I also didn't love it from the price perspective. I felt like I really liked Dad, and that was
Which one, I'm sorry, which one are you referring to?
the Share Your Story. Is that its official name?
Yeah. Sharing your story.
Yeah, Sharing Your Story.
Yeah.
I felt like Dad the Dragon was a big price point. So that's where I was putting the bulk of the funds under the budget I put together. And I felt like this one was a really big chunk that I just didn't see being as interactive. So given that it takes almost half the budget, and I recognize that Dad the Dragon would be a lease, I hope it would take off and we'd want to put that towards buying it. So I was anticipating the whole 34 to buy it.
I kind of felt opposite. I really loved Sharing Your Story, and I felt like it's worth, even though it's a big number, if I had to choose that between that and like 3 smaller ones that were not as poignant, not as impressive to me, then I would think it would be worth the trade. But that's just me. So, what are their thoughts?
I'm kind of that same mode because I feel like this would be around for decades and decades. And I'm not so sure about the Dragon. I don't know. License plates, I don't know if it's been treated, but they rust and they don't have the life expectancy I would expect of maybe what stainless steel is, and bronze. But naturally, bronze and stainless steel are have longevity that would last forever, and they're pricey because of that.
Let me just ask the council for opinions for Sharing Your Story. If you feel like it's worth a purchase, or if you'd rather explore a lease, please.
I'd rather purchase it. To me, it's the best piece here that's available. Just my own personal taste, and I know that personal taste is not scientifically based, but that's my opinion.
Any other thoughts on Sharing Your Story? A lease versus a purchase?
How much do we add to our budget a year typically? Do we know?
So it's 1% of the new capital projects coming out of the general fund. So we have not added, for example, 1% for the general obligation bond. That was not included. If we did 1% of that, that would be $100,000 next year, and plus all of the new capital projects paid for in the project fund. So it's about, barring that 10 million, it's just varied a little bit, but it's about $25,000 a year.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead. Okay. I'm leaning more toward leasing across the board. Just as we are introducing art to Bountiful, because art is so subjective, and this is a new thing for Bountiful, I would hate to purchase such a big ticket item only to have it end up in storage in 10 years. So I would prefer, to Councilmember Bell's point, as far as our weather and how things, you know, the point of license plates versus stainless steel and all of these factors, I would like to slowly introduce this art through leasing, and then if we find we fall in love with it, let's buy it. But I don't want to just buy something because the money is there and because we can. So I would prefer leasing 5 pieces and installing them, or maybe 4, 3 or 4, and finding out kind of the natural places people congregate and walk. That way, when we do want to buy something for a specific area, we can be a little bit more intentional, as opposed to, we really like this dragon, let's find a spot for it. Or we really like this bench, this sharing your story, let's find a spot for it. I think as we place art throughout the downtown and the historic area, we can kind of see where people are starting to congregate. And I think with the ice ribbon and farmers market, we can kind of see where people are trickling out beyond that. And then we can maybe be a little bit more, not that you haven't been intentional by any means, or the board
You're
hasn't.
good.
But this is just kind of how my brain is thinking. I think we can see kind of what resonates with residents, say that 5 times fast. And then we can kind of go from there. So that's, maybe I'm being a little gun shy, but that's kind of how I'm leaning.
If I may, I would just, I guess my main thing I'd like to say is I'm in favor of the large-scale pieces, primarily over the smaller scale pieces. I think that we get more bang for our buck. Some of the pieces are quite small. I think Steampunk Bell is really cute, but it's 2 feet wide. I mean, that's like this. And so I think, you know, for me, and one of these in here is something I think I've seen in some people's yards. It's the one that spins around. And so for me, I think these are statement pieces, and I hesitate a little bit to put them all on a lease, simply because I think then we really become subject to what often people don't just proactively go forward and say, I love this. Hey, just by the way, great job, or this is fun, or I love it. Often we're hearing more, you know, people who are negatively reacting are the ones who are reaching out. And I think that not always, but sometimes, it's raining so hard. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I would love to just commit on a few of these and just say, this is what we're putting forward. And some of them I think are truly worthwhile. And when I think this is something that we've been talking about for quite some time. And for some of these, I think I would love to see a full commit here tonight on a few of them. And maybe with the dragon, because it is a little, maybe, I don't know, more whimsical, but I absolutely adore the dragon. I feel really excited when I hear you say, oh, we could get all of these top 5 pieces. And they're not all my top 5, but for instance, North Star, super cute, but I've seen it displayed, and it is a little bit high, and it is less interactive, and I also think there's some things there that are pretty fragile. So that would be my only reservation with something like North Star or even Steampunk Bell. I worry about the possibility of them getting I don't know, vandalized, especially because they're quite small. But that's just mostly me saying my opinions. I love the larger scale. I would love to commit fully on a few of these tonight. And I do have a quick question. Within a Dream, did that get any traction?
It had one vote
Oh, that was me.
and a half a vote, because my vote's in there too.
So have you seen it in person? You've been down there.
I've not seen that one in person.
It's on the street, on Main Street, that just comes south. It's a block and a half off of the boulevard. And walking past it, it didn't wow me. I thought it looked cool when we saw pictures, and then when we went down, I just thought, okay.
I was questioning the scale, if the scale was kind of tiny, and if the 68 inches included the base.
It does.
So I don't like it that if it includes the base, with the exception of wet your whistle, because that's part of the component, is the hydrant and the water and the birds, and anyway.
Do you mind showing us all 5 again that were the
Yes.
top 5?
And if actually, can we scroll, we'll scroll through those, and then I'm gonna add one that there was a typo on the website, that Daydream is actually 10 feet tall, not 3 feet. So wondering, now that we know that scale is a factor, the steel flower is actually 10 feet tall, but 3 feet wide, so it's much bigger than I thought from that photo, because I had not seen it in person. This was in their last year's show, so it's not up any longer, but it is still available. I just got a text from her during this meeting that I'd asked her to double check with the artist. So I just wanted to factor that in, if that changed anything, just to correct the info I had given you. But the top 5 you'd voted for: Dad, Sharing Your Story, North Star, Wet Your Whistle, which is the hydrant, and Steampunk Bell.
Okay, and if we purchase them all except for lease for Dad, they would all be within our budget. Okay, so I guess, what do you think, Gary, is the best way to go from here as we're looking at this?
I've seen, I think, if not 100% consensus on a few things. And so it might be just time to raise some hands and move forward on some of them. So one that I'm hearing consensus on is to lease Dad, the dragon. If you support that, maybe just throw your hand up in the air. Okay, so it looks like there's a majority that feel good about that. And then the second one is
Sharing Your
tell your story. What I heard as a general consensus was purchasing that piece. So first question is, who supports that piece and purchase or sale? Purchase or lease, I mean. So raise your hand if you like it, purchase or lease. Okay, so the majority. And then how about who wants to buy it? Okay, so the majority, okay. Then I think we just go down the list. Next
Let's do
one.
that. Okay, so I have 4 out of 6 for that one. North Star.
May I ask, sorry, is there anyone else that would like to lease, or is the only option purchasing?
Well, I saw 4 hands for purchase and 1 hand for lease.
No, I'm just saying across the board,
Oh.
because that kind of
Oh,
changes.
for all the pieces.
It just changes my
I guess to answer that for me,
thought.
I think leasing, like if we did Dad, I'm okay leasing that. I would be opposed to buying that, but other pieces that I feel like are more timeless, I would
You'd prefer to
love
buy.
to buy, yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly where I am too.
Okay.
I think the dragon's cute. I think that there'll be a part of our population that loves it, and there'll be another part that says, you spent $3,400 on what? But it's just a lease, and then it goes away and something else comes in. So I think flavor of the month, to me type stuff, a great idea to lease it if it's pricey. And the ones that I think are going to have long-lasting appeal to the majority of Bountiful folks. You know, you mentioned resident preferences, I don't think that if we lease them, we're going to get a large majority of residents that like certain things. I mean, just like was said, it's just personal preference.
Yeah.
And Rebecca described, the varied backgrounds of the folks that are on the committee, and residents are going to be the same way. So some of these, I'd rather own them. Others, I'd rather lease.
Okay.
And the size difference on that stainless steel flower would make a big difference to me. I would have voted for it instead of North Star, just because of the fact that to me, it's more striking. And anyway,
10 feet, you'll see that when you're driving by pretty notably. That's a statement.
yeah.
For now, I would skip over North Star and maybe come back to that because
Let's do that.
it seems like there were opinions, but I would maybe go to Wet Your Whistle and
Take a vote.
I'm interested in leasing that. Gary, should we raise our hands about buying versus leasing that one?
I think maybe the same process of, first of all, who likes it either way, because if there's only one person that likes it, then there's no reason to buy or lease. So who likes Wet Your Whistle? 3,
if you wanna look, it's
3 and a
like
half
it.
ish. Is
Okay.
that a yes?
Like
Two,
it.
3, 4, 5. Is that 5 or 4? 1, 2, 3, 4.
So I counted 4.
Okay.
that-
Didn't make my top 5.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm opposed to the piece,
Sure.
but
So assuming that meant there was a majority that liked it, you can vote again. Would you support leasing or purchasing? So raise your hand if you support purchasing that, even if you don't like it. One purchase, okay, leasing. Okay.
Okay.
So
See,
I-
Let's
I
do
like
the same.
sharing your story more than Wet Your Whistle.
Me too.
me too.
Well,
So that's where I'm just thinking, okay.
should we do an official vote on, let's just do the official vote on sharing your story, then we'll go down to steampunk. You know what, we'll come back to sharing your story, North Star, and we'll just keep going down the list. We'll do the same process of if you like it, and then yes or no. I'm gonna write these down and I'll see what numbers we're at. Okay, so for Steampunk Belle, who likes it, enough to move forward,
Sure.
3 out of
3.
6, okay, that's not quite majority, so I think maybe we move on from that. Okay, just to include the other 2 that got 2 votes, but we haven't talked about, so we'll just go off of your gut, is Woman in the Wind, if you like it enough to move forward, okay? Daydream,
I
oh,
like late
I'm
ones.
sorry,
It's good.
late votes, I didn't look at your hands.
There were 2.
2, all right. Daydream, which is the 10-foot tall steel flower, if you go down one more, Miranda, who likes it.
2, 3. Got to kind of keep your hands raised.
Yeah, because I keep looking down. 1, 2, and 3.
Can I ask a
Four?
question
Oh,
about
yeah.
this? Has someone seen it in real life? Anybody?
I have not.
It is no longer up. Yeah, it's with the artist now.
I'm just concerned about the
Petals?
ground level petals
Yes.
and the potential for bending and pulling. They look kind of fragile.
I'm not sure about the fragility, but I will say as far as location, for most of the pieces that I've been thinking about on Main Street would be in the planter box. So raised and in the planter boxes along Main Street would be a potential good spot for that. So no one should be grabbing and climbing on those ones because it's going to be around plants. Not saying it won't happen, but that's one thing I'll say is something I thought about these sculptures for placement. So should we do that vote again? Do we like Daydream? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, out of those, who would like to purchase it? 1, 2, 3. And this is even if you didn't vote for it, just so we can get, okay, well, we got there. All right.
4.
We've got 4 out of 6 to purchase for Daydream. And then the last one was Spring, which is the one that moves with the wind. And he makes many different types. This is the one the art board chose for $13.50. Anyone that likes it to move forward, it's all right. Okay, let's go back to sharing your story.
Did anyone else vote for that one?
You
I
were a
did,
lone hand.
just because of the fact that it's such a bargain.
And it moves
And it
with the
moves.
wind.
So I'm not heartbroken if it doesn't get purchased.
Can I interest you in a pig whose tail moves?
It's a cool sculpture, by the way. So, I mean, you could, with the ones that are currently displayed in St. George and available, you could really establish a strong steampunk trend for the selection.
Well,
But
another thing I'll
it's a
men-
cool
excuse
sculpture.
me. Another thing to mention is that we're just hoping to get a consensus of a handful today. We could always come back to this in 6 months in March with either the same pieces, since no one else has shown interest to purchase yet. So I'll just plug that in.
Do we have to wait till
Get a
March?
few. For these to be available, yep, except in Shroud.
May I ask a question?
Not for a decision.
And Daydream actually might be available pretty soon, since the artist has it again.
Okay. How big is Mary on page 17?
Oh, I didn't write that on this page. I don't know if I wrote that here because it wasn't on the art board's list.
Oh, it wasn't on there, okay, if it wasn't on their list, then I'm okay not exploring
No,
it.
that's okay.
I defer to them.
We had one vote for Mary from the council members. Yeah, I don't remember what that one was. I feel like it was 4 or 5 feet tall, not including the pedestal. But I'm going off of memory of what we measured during our meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rebecca and Gary and council members, one thing we might want to consider as well with funds that may remain is if we're going to invite artists to display in our spaces, we probably need to invest a little bit of money in some pedestals, bases for some of these smaller or more delicate art pieces that remain, and artists can cycle through, pieces can come and go, but our bases would remain there. St. George has done that, and it seems to work well for them. So, if there are funds remaining, it might not hurt to consider the idea of establishing some permanent locations that way.
I absolutely agree. We made some room, that 13,000 left, if we were to use all 100,000, would be for installation, including pouring cement for those pedestals. They've offered giving us their contact on how they do it best.
Super.
So do you want to summarize real fast, Rebecca?
So far, I'm trying to actually read my notes. I think we have a lease for Dad, a purchase for sharing your story. North Star, we're going to come back to, is the one I have left. Lease Wet Your Whistle, pass on Steampunk, and purchase Daydream.
I think that's great,
One.
a great start. Does that feel like good direction to you? Do you think that that's good for tonight?
Absolutely. My goal was a consensus of even just 1 or 2. So having 1, 2, 3, 4 with a decision
Excellent.
is great. So is there anybody strong opinion before?
Yeah, I'd like
Okay,
to
yeah.
put the pig up to a vote for my fellow council member.
Let's do that.
Bradshaw.
Which if you'll
Just
go
for
down,
her.
it's a few pages down.
How big is he?
It's tail
It
twists.
sits on a pedestal that's maybe a couple feet off the ground, and it's 3.5, 4 feet long, a couple of feet tall.
I like him.
The only comment from the art board, just so you have background, was they didn't like its eyes because it looked gas masky, was their wording.
Yeah, it's like
So just
old
to let you
welding
know.
goggles.
Yeah.
It's steampunk for real,
Definitely,
yeah.
just to have.
I liked it. I thought it was fun and
Okay.
picture worthy.
What does it do that's interactive?
I believe that it described that the tail can move in the artist statement.
Wiggle its tail.
Like you can crank the tail.
I think the pig and Dad complement each other. They're both kind of funky.
What does that say about your dad?
He'd be flattered. He's a fun guy.
Should we do a vote on pig iron then? Of
Let's
who
do it.
likes it to move forward?
I'll do
1, 2, 3, 4. And who would like to purchase it over leasing? 1, 2, 3. And that, well, even if you didn't vote for it, would you rather lease or
I'd
purchase?
purchase them, and I'd purchase sharing your story.
Purchase pig?
Oh,
So
is
let's
the
just do
paper
that again. We're
airplane
talking about
available?
pig, and only 4 of you voted that you liked it.
It's
But
one of
even
the
if you
ones
didn't-
that's a response to the,
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, are we coming back tonight to North Star or not?
Oh, good point. I skipped back over
Um,
that.
We
Those are the only
just
two left.
skipped it for now, but if you have any strong feelings, you can tell us.
So let's take a vote on PIG just while we're
Well,
at it, and we
If I
can,
were choosing between PIG or North Star, and North Star is a little bit cheaper, I don't know.
Let's take the vote on PIG, and then we can talk about North Star.
all right, so one more time. Who likes pig iron? 1, 2.
Well, I like him, but if I put it next to something,
If you have a deciding factor.
decide between him and North Star, or, I
It
know
would've been
between
helpful
for
if we
airplane
had-
Well,
too.
I don't
Three
think you
votes
have to
or
decide
five
between both. You can purchase both.
I think we're at, because we're leasing, sharing your story, not purchasing.
Or you
No,
can
we are
lease them
purchasing,
both.
I'm sorry. Let me see where we're at. We're leasing Wet Your Whistle, so we are still in budget.
If you want to buy North Star,
I
let's vote on buying
personally
North
am
Star.
just going to say, I would prefer to purchase Wet Your Whistle because it is, because of the scale and the birds and the fact that we live near a bird refuge.
We did take a vote on that.
Yeah.
I know.
So I think we need
wanted
to.
to say it again.
The last two, even if you voted yay for both North Star and both North Star and Pig Iron, we're still in budget. So don't let that sway your votes. So do we like Pig Iron is our vote? One more time.
Could we do the paper airplane instead of the North Star and the pig?
That one only had one other vote in their top favorites.
So we,
Only you'd voted.
I'm wondering if we could
No.
come back to
But
the
so you'd
smaller
only be at
scale
2.
ones.
what I would recommend at this point is we come back and talk about this further. We had kind of the top 5, which we have addressed, right?
Correct.
And that was based on our votes. And so now we could just stab in the dark and pick random things that we like. But I think the main thing is we wanted to address the ones where there was some consensus, which we've done. So is there any last comments anybody has about the ones that came out in the top 5? Any last comments?
So I'm unclear. Did
Okay.
the pig make the cut or not make the cut?
I don't think we got the final vote on the pig or North Star quite yet. Should we just
Would
take
the
that
council
vote?
like to vote on those 2 tonight?
Yes.
Yes?
10 seconds.
Okay, let's take a vote
Right.
on the pig and North Star.
All right, Pig Iron. Who likes Pig Iron?
Just go straight to who
1,
wants
2,
to buy
3.
pig iron.
Who wants to purchase Pig Iron? 1, 2, 3.
And a
Is
half.
that a hand, Millie? 4. Okay. 4 out of 6. Okay, and that's for purchasing. Next one, North Star. Who would like to purchase North Star? 1, 2. All right, great.
Mayor, can I ask for a future meeting?
Sure.
In the taking flight airplane, or Dreams taking flight,
Okay.
I didn't see them list the size. I vaguely remember it when it was up for
Says that
display that it was large, but I don't,
And we would have to get our own, the height, I think,
In the
included.
write-up, it's just in word
pedestal.
form. It says it's 10 and a half feet long
Thank
with the
you.
wingspan just over 5 feet wide.
oh, you are right.
And
Thanks.
and it didn't include its height because that pedestal, we'd have to get our own pole.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a continuing discussion,
Continuing.
and
Correct.
hopefully that gives you some good direction.
Yeah.
Is there any final questions about art from the council? Okay, I think that's great progress for tonight for this, but we will talk about this further.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much.
For all your work.
Thank you. I talked to the Art Around the Corner, and they are so excited that we showed so much interest in their art. And I tease with them that we're like a sister city and how we want our art program, and they just want to share all the info that they have with us. So we've got a great contact.
That's a great resource.
Yeah.
Also, do you mind giving us a quick update about the bees?
Oh, they are done. They've been casted. They're just waiting for their final finish, their gloss finish that protects them from weathering, and we'll be picking them up soon. I'll be getting specifics about their advice for installing them, but it should be an epoxy. I'm going to work with the Parks Department on epoxying them. They're going to be all along Main Street. Our next art board meeting is finalizing the specific locations that they'll be around, and then talking about the installment day and event. So it's exciting. Within the next month or two, we'll see those.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Charles, I'm really sorry about the delay of the discussion. I'm wondering, do you think, Gary, it would be okay if we move this item to our council meeting?
Charles, are you able to stick around?
So I'm just wondering if we could insert it perhaps right after, maybe like between item 6 and 7? Does that work? Okay, so if you don't mind, we'll put you at number 6.5 on the agenda for Okay, perfect. Thank you. So thanks for your patience. So anyone who is interested in the recycling discussion, we will be talking about that in our upcoming meeting, in our regular session at 7 o'clock. And we'll just take a quick break now before we start our regular council meeting. Thank you.